Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OGP. I'm Michael, and Jordan's here again.
I'm here.
For a very special episode of the show where we're going to talk about game preservation and the death of physical media, and probably a bunch of other stuff too. But before we get into any of that, we want to talk about the classic segment. What have we played?
Classic.
I got two games. I'll start with maybe the more interesting of the two. That's a weird way to put it, but the more surprising of the two.
Okay.
That is Side Pocket. Are you familiar with this game?
I'm not actually.
It's on NSO. It's a billiards game for Super Nintendo.
Oh, fun.
It's one of the ones where you wonder, like, why did Nintendo put this on here?
Right.
But played it with a friend online, and it ended up being surprisingly fun. A great game to just, like, kind of, like, bullshit while you play. Pretty cool. I was really impressed, and graphically it can be sort of surprisingly nice sometimes. So I played Side Pocket.
Nice.
I'll just cover the other one real quick too on that. This one is one, like, I can't believe it took me this long to play it, but it takes two.
Oh yeah, I've heard it's really good. I haven't played it myself
It
yet,
is
though.
incredibly good. It's got that perfect kind of fluid, snappy platforming control that I just crave from my platformers, and I'm actually shocked at how good it is. Watching another person play it doesn't really do it justice. I guess is the big thing. And the story's cute. The visuals are mostly really nice. Definitely the people, the human characters sort of fall into that uncanny valley-ish.
That's kind of what I've seen from, like, looking at gameplay and footage of it. It's like, it's a little...
I think it's because it's all rendered in engine.
Right.
But for the more cartoony aspects, it looks great. And I'm having a lot of fun with it, and probably going to complete that by the time we record our next podcast, so maybe I can give more complete thoughts then, but I'm loving it so far.
Yeah.
Jordan, what have you played?
I've got a few. One of the ones that... See, I've only got one beaten, which was the Fate Extella. It's the hack and slash, like, Fate Stay Night, alternate universe ones. Okay. And mostly just a way for me to kind of quickly go through it anyways, get it out of my backlog. I ended up dropping Moonlighter, which I like it, but, like, it's the one you run a shop, but you have to go into the dungeon and get the items that come back. It kind of, like, going back and forth. Like, it's not a bad game. It's just, like, I really wasn't, like, vibing with the how repetitive it is.
Tedious,
yeah. And also, like, dying so much. It's like I want to keep making progress, but, like, I keep dying, and there's really not much of a good way to, like, upgrade weapons and stuff. So, and then the three that I have not, I'm just currently playing is a little bit of Codename Steam, which is which I've had that for a little while. It's a very interesting game.
I actually have a copy too that I got for, like, I think $5 at GameStop.
It's
really
so cheap to buy that game. It's not bad though, but it was, like, barely, like, advertised, so, like, I don't think anyone really even knew about it.
That was Intelligent Systems, right?
It was, it's Intelligent Systems, tactical RPG, but, like, over the shoulder, using steampunk during, like, the 1800s, where
Abraham Lincoln,
like, one of the early missions you have to save which queen? I don't remember which queen it is, but it's like you're in London, you have to save the queen. You also team up with the Cowardly Lion
from Wizard of
Oz. And there's a bunch of other, like,
weird game,
because like, your first partner is I think it's John Henry. Like,
that sounds right. Yeah,
like, with the like the steam like the hammer and everything. It's a weird game. A little bit of a Trauma Center Under the Knife 2. Very actually challenging game.
That's on what
DS actually.
Oh, the DS. Okay.
Yeah. So I think there's 2 on DS and then 2 on Wii. I think it was Second Opinion and then Trauma Team were on Wii, and then Under the Knife 1 and 2 were on DS. And then the last one, which is the one I'm currently, like, playing the most of, is Solitarobo. For, like, this one and Trauma Center were on my list, but Solitarobo is, like, the second or third most expensive one on my list. It's the the very late DS game, second of the Little Bronx story, or Little Bronx Tale genre series that, like, gets a game once in a blue moon, basically.
All right.
Because it was Tale Concerto back on the PS1, then Solitarobo, and then the Fuga Melodies of Steel that's on Switch.
How you enjoying it so far?
Pretty good.
That's good.
Yeah,
considering its price.
Yeah, well, it's a little repetitive with its gameplay, but, like, the story is definitely very interesting. I think I'm nearing the halfway point of the story.
All right, Jordan, so let's move into the main topic for today. It should be said there's been a ton of news stories in the past couple weeks here.
Especially.
It's been kind of wild. We had Jim Ryan retiring as head of PlayStation. We had Sony getting hacked.
Yeah.
We had, again, yeah. All those layoffs. Everyone's getting laid off in the game industry. It's really pretty tragic, honestly.
I think the big one I saw recently was the guys behind The Walking Dead, Telltale.
Oh, yeah, yep. We had them, Epic Games. I think I saw Sega laying some people off, too.
Interesting.
Yeah, not a great time right now in the games industry. KOTOR's remake has some sort of issues. Who knows what's going on with that? I mean, and then you have the class action lawsuit for the second game on the Switch version, right?
Yeah, Switch version, because they weren't releasing the DLC of the cut content.
Like they had said they were going to.
Like that's what was the main reason people were going to buy that game.
And then you have Mario Wonder leaking. I don't know if you've seen any Mario Wonder leaks.
I haven't seen that.
And then this sort of ties into what we're talking about, but the Microsoft FTC shenanigans, where we found out that maybe the Switch 2 is going to be more like a PS4 in terms of power level. That ended up being leaked through this. The reason why I bring this up is that these new Xbox Series revisions that are happening and what they might mean for the future of gaming.
Let's hope not.
And it's not a very bright image of the future. So what's up with these Xbox revisions? So for starters, I guess, what does the market look like right now? We have the Series S and the Series X. The Series S is already an all-digital model. It's a little bit less powerful than the Series X.
Yeah, I think it still does 4K, but it doesn't have some like the extra like oomph that the Series X has.
Yeah. It's much more comparable to, I guess, something that's sort of in between last gen and this gen.
Yeah.
And then you have the Series X, which takes physical games and is like kind of the premier main console.
Yeah.
If you want the best experience, you're going to want the Series X. Well, we got to look at these new revisions, and the Series S, still all digital, that's no surprise. But the Series X now lost its disk drive, which means in total only 1 out of the 4 versions of the Xbox Series consoles will have a disk drive, which just means that Xbox is done with physical media. Let's be real.
Yeah, I'm hoping not, and just in general, but
there's just no reason for them to produce physical games anymore after that revision releases, because every indication shows that the old version of the Series X is just not going to be available.
Yeah.
And are they really going to keep a physical presence in stores for a console that they're not even selling anymore?
Right.
It seems sort of unlikely. So anyway, that, among other reasons that we'll probably touch on in a bit, has got us thinking about this conversation of physical media and game preservation. Also, I don't know if you saw this bit of news about Xbox, but their plans for the next generation console that were in the FTC
I
leaks.
looked a little bit about it, but I never really read too much into it, honestly.
They want to create a hybrid console that is a mixture between traditional game console and cloud.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly, right?
No.
Which I guess kind of implies some sort of always online requirement.
Yeah.
Because the cloud will be delivering some sort of, I don't know. It remains to be seen what this will look like.
Yeah. Does Game Pass require online as well, or is that just you have to just download it and you can play it offline?
I want to say it requires online, but I actually can't speak to that.
Fair. I'm I don't have Game Pass at all. I know there's a PC version, but I have no reason to play it to do that. So
I mean, to be fair, from what I've heard, Game Pass is an excellent deal.
Yeah.
I've only heard good things about it, but here's just another reason why I'm not too interested in investing in the Xbox ecosystem, I guess. One of the unique qualities of Series X, you could say, is its ability to play previous gen Xbox games, because they all take discs. One of the benefits of physical media is that if a console is backwards compatible, you can bring along your entire collection
and potentially add to it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a shame. Anyway, that's what's going on with Xbox. So let's talk about this whole physical media game preservation nightmare that we're entering into.
Right.
I think it's worth discussing some of the things that have already disappeared for one reason or another. The big one that's literally getting delisted today, today, as we record this.
As of recording.
October the 8th is Pac-Man 99. Arguably a tentpole title as far as the Nintendo Switch Online
catalog.
Yeah, catalog goes, right? These 99 games are one of the unique benefits you get for joining up with Switch Online, and it's the second one to go. And you have to wonder about the longevity of any online games when it comes to this sort of thing.
I think at this point, the only one that we don't really have to worry about as far as the Switch Online goes is just Tetris 99 at this point. That's just that's never going to go away.
And that's just because Tetris will always be a universal thing that people are never going to stop playing Tetris. But that's not Nintendo keeping it up out of the goodness of their hearts.
It's more so they're still making money off of it.
Right. Unfortunately, as we've, I think, talked about before, Pac-Man 99, it's not a great game by any means, but I still think it has some historical value to it, and the idea that, okay, you can no longer access this game for a pretty arbitrary reason.
Right.
It feels like a scam, almost.
A little.
It seems like if Nintendo is promising a benefit of joining their online subscription is having access to Pac-Man 99.
And then they take it away.
Feels like a betrayal to some degree. To maybe a larger extent, we can talk about what's happening with the Wii U and 3DS online stuff. Do you want to kind of go over that?
So it's, they said, I think they've only given just a month. It's April of next year, if I remember correctly. They're going to be shutting down all online services. The notable exception being Pokemon Bank. That's going to still stay up for the foreseeable future. But I think they said that they're still strongly urging people to transfer from Bank to home.
Right.
Which I'm not going to be doing anyways, so that doesn't really affect me too much. I'll let them sit there forever.
Sure.
But yeah, that means especially any online heavy games like Splatoon or Mario Maker 1. At least officially, you won't be able to play those online anymore.
Which is an insane, especially with Mario Maker, an insane loss of user-generated content.
Oh, so much.
Mario Maker kind of defined the Wii U era in a lot of ways. That was a huge game streaming-wise. People spent hundreds of thousands of hours in this thing.
If not millions.
Have you seen that? It's I can't remember what it was called, Trials of Death maybe or something, but a guy spent literally years, 5 or 6 years trying to beat this level of Mario Maker.
I have not, actually.
And get it cleared so they could upload it.
That's insane.
I think they ended up not being able to upload it anyway because Mario Maker already took down its ability to upload courses.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
But now, you no longer even be able to play the ones that are already uploaded.
Yeah.
It's just messed up. It's really messed up.
Yeah.
Splatoon as well. We have Splatoon 2 and 3. However, there's still a pretty large and dedicated group of Splatoon 1 players because that game does offer some unique differences over its sequels.
Yeah, see, Splatoon is a series that I've never really played a whole lot myself. I think the most I've really been exposed is just the original the original Test Fire on Wii U.
Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of that, it's not a bad game. I know obviously it has a huge fan base to it. It just never really appealed to me. But now you just having to remove the option to even try the original game online.
Right.
It's just a loss in general, really.
For sure. Another one I was thinking about that is on 3DS is Smash Brothers. It's why would you care, right? Play Ultimate, it's the better version.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true, but if you'll recall, there was the Pac-Man stage on 3DS
that's
made special use of the fact that people were on different screens. With how the power pellets worked or whatever. And I think that's another unfortunate casualty here.
Another one too is Kid Icarus Uprising. I know that had a pretty. I think it still has a pretty dedicated online community.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. It's not one that I've really delved much into because I mainly just played it for the story mode,
right? As
opposed to PvP. But that's still a huge portion of this game is just going to be gone.
And especially considering we haven't gotten replacements
Nope.
for some of these things. That's the big worry. If Mario Maker 1's levels were all accessible through Mario Maker 2 somehow, or if Splatoon, you could play Splatoon 1 physics or mechanics, it changed. This would be less of an issue, but there's never that interest on part of the companies to continue to maintain these old deprecated versions of games that have interest to me and you maybe, but to general audiences.
Yeah, they're like, it's not worth the effort.
So yeah, we're on the eve of Pac-Man 99 being delisted. I kind of want to give it a go here one last time before it gets removed, but that remains to be seen. Yeah, maybe I'm part of the problem.
Yeah, like we only got a few hours, so.
I also want to talk about like things that have already disappeared here. So this was kind of interesting. A couple of weeks ago, whenever we last talked, I think we were talking about F-Zero and how I suggested that they could take some of those Satellaview courses and implement them into F-Zero 99.
Right.
First of all, interestingly enough, it seems like there might be evidence in the code that they've already maybe started on this.
Which would be really cool.
Really cool. But along with sort of looking into just the F-Zero series in general, I found out that there was a whole nother like league from the F-Zero Grand Prix 2 run that is just lost media now. And that just blew my mind. I'm like, wow. You know, an example of a tentpole Nintendo franchise with these courses that are just lost to history.
Right. And there's another one that we didn't even hear about too.
It's fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, like, and Nintendo doesn't have any desire to bring back the Satellaview stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
All the stuff that's been saved from Satellaview has been on fans who've been dedicating themselves to finding these old memory packs that still have the data that they can extract from it, you know.
Yeah, like there's literally like 9 Picross games that were exclusive to
sure.
It's the NP Picross line that are only on the Nintendo, like the old like Nintendo Power like SNES cartridges back in only in Japan as well.
Right. And if someone doesn't have one of those laying around or they overwrote it,
it's
gone forever because it's a download service. Yeah, and I mean, you look at some of the other stuff that was on Satellaview, like Ancient Stone Tablets. Like, that is a very intriguing entry in Zelda that's based on Link to the Past. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
But the idea that might have never been
preserved,
yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
Like, just having to look at images of it and imagining what it might have been like.
Right.
Scary stuff. Mario 35, of course, is like the perfect storm of removing a game and it no longer is playable at all.
Yeah, because like I think you can still re-download it, but it's like, oh, thank you for playing. You can no longer play this game. It's like, well, why even let us re-download it then?
Yeah, if you have it on your console, you can load the application, but it's just unplayable now because they, for some reason, like I can't literally imagine why they just removed the online feature of it.
Yeah.
So I have no idea why.
Just making it even more of a limited time only.
And it's not like that was a minor game either. That was a main part of the 35th anniversary celebration for Super Mario Brothers. Speaking of which, you have Mario 3D All-Stars.
Don't even get me started.
It's a huge release for Switch. Like, in my opinion, the best way to play Sunshine is on that cartridge. Same with Galaxy. That's how I first beat Galaxy.
Yeah.
You just can't buy it. You want to play it, track down
a physical
copy, which thank God they at least exist.
Yeah.
You know, there is some way to access it still.
But I think they're encroaching on $100 now.
Yep.
If not higher.
For 3 ports of old games. And why? Mind-boggling. It could be argued that maybe because 64 is available on NSO.
I guess, but you'd have to track down a GameCube for Sunshine.
Yeah, and Wii for Galaxy, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's been, or an NVIDIA Shield.
Yeah, in what, in China?
In China, yeah. That was such a messed up year, the Mario 35th anniversary. We got,
it was a mess.
Bowser's Fury, which was brilliant, and then 2 games which are no longer accessible to the average. Readily available to the average person. That same year actually was Fire Emblem 30th anniversary.
Oh, it was the same year. That's right.
Well, that's another game that got delisted.
Yeah.
I hope that you got that while you could,
because you have to go through fan translations to actually play it legitimately.
And that one is like even less excusable because it has not appeared on NSO yet. In Japan it has, but
of course it has, because they're like, oh, it's already been released over there.
Right.
Like, oh, do they want to release the translated version when they gave it to us for $8?
Yeah. I don't know what happens if you buy the physical. I'm doing air quotes right now. You can't see it, but the physical version, which had a code in.
Yeah, code in a box. It does have some like pretty, admittedly, some pretty cool like bonus stuff that comes with it.
I think it had like a map and
map, like a huge like actual art book and a whole bunch of stuff, but
no actual game cartridge.
It's literally just like, oh hey, here's like a little thing of like an NES cartridge, but it's like just a code in a box.
Usually with the code, it still lets you download the things. Like I think we were talking about like Mario 35. You can still download that application.
Yeah.
And at least in this case, it will work. But for physical versions, I think I saw like $250 in Amazon.
I pulled up a link and I saw like one. It's like, oh, you can still buy it, but it's like $250. And I don't think there's any.
It's not worth.
Yeah, I don't think there's any guarantee that even if you put the code in, you'd be able to download it.
Yeah, exactly true. And then we were looking sort of before we started recording at other instances of these unplayable games or whatever, or delisted games, and I was reminded of the case of Dark Spore, which was the follow-up to Spore, which was a very bizarre game. It was like a creature creation, galaxy exploring thing. I wasn't huge into it. The character creator, though, was very funny.
Yeah, I've seen examples, and I kind of feel bad for these creatures. Like they would not be able to survive like anywhere like more than 3 seconds.
But they made a sequel to it called Dark Spore, where they're like, we're going to make Spore but edgy. And
which was common for the era.
Right, exactly, true. It wasn't as big of a hit by any means. I think Spore already was like a middling success.
Yeah.
But this one had like always online DRM, and you needed to connect to a server to be able to get the full gameplay experience. They just, pulled it in 2016, and now people have physical versions, actually. But they don't work.
Yeah, they just can't play
Which is maybe the worst scenario for these. A glimpse of what we have lost already. If that doesn't frighten you a little bit, I don't know, just wait till it happens to a game that you truly love. And we warned you, I guess.
Yeah, it's like we warned you, if possible, back up your games now.
Right. Which, Jordan.
Good way to segue.
Good way to segue into the benefits of physical media. Because, we've discussed a little bit, like Splatoon and then Dark Spore are two unfortunate cases where the internet component is so integral to the experience that even having them physically might not solve the issue.
Right.
But I guess with Splatoon, real quick, there might even be a solution to that. You want to talk about this? Jordan was mentioning this to me.
Yeah, so I think it's been going on for a few years now. There's a fan-run project going on called Pretendo, where you can actually still play Wii U and 3DS games online through their own, basically fan-run servers. I think it's a little, overall, with the progress they're making, I think they're, 63% of the way through, of everything they're working on. I don't think anything is 100% done. I think the only exception to that, I think Wii U chat is 100%. They've basically finished.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, so you can actually use through Pretender. You can use Wii U chat again, which I don't know why you would, but if you wanted to.
I'm going to be honest. I'm maybe one of the only people who got a lot of use out of Wii U chat.
Oh yeah.
I really loved it. It was
well,
really cool.
I think I used it a couple times. After that, I never really had much of a reason because it's usually I'm playing the Wii U. I don't need to be.
Right.
I'm not going to use it to talk to someone. I'm going to play it. But that is using through Pretendo, you can 100% use stuff like that now. And I know there's a decent amount of work with Splatoon they've been doing. I know they're working on custom Splatfest right now. It's a big thing. Unfortunately, the only way to access this is to utilize homebreaking your system and installing it and having to basically create a whole new account just for Pretendo.
Luckily, though, the fans are there at least doing something.
Yeah,
there's some sort of solution.
So if you want to look into it, there's stuff online. We don't really want to get into it here, but
it is exciting though, the idea that a game like Splatoon, which you might think would just be dead in the water, might have a second life. And I think that Pretendo's also sort of reviving or at least creating their own version of Miiverse.
They are. It's Juxtaposition is what it's being called.
Okay, very cool.
And I think they also just recently put it out in the public to basically revitalize the Wara Wara Plaza on Wii U.
Oh yeah, which was a pretty essential. It's the first thing you saw when you booted up.
It is the first thing you see. It's depending on how you have it booted up. It's either on the TV or on the touchscreen. Which, as of right now, officially, it's just all the official apps that are available. But now through them fixing it, you're able to basically have like what other people are playing, like you did like back in the day when like during like the Wii U's heyday, to see like what everyone's like actually playing online.
But this is all to really illustrate just one of the benefits of the physical media thing, which is if you don't already own Splatoon physically, it doesn't matter either way,
right?
As far as this stuff goes,
because you can't buy it digitally anymore.
So even if all hope seems lost sometimes, having a physical copy might come in handy. I mean, for me, it's just also about ownership.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't like the idea that a company has control over the product that I already paid for and get to determine how I use it.
Right.
So the idea that, I buy a game now or I buy the game 30 years ago and I still get to control what happens to that game.
Right.
I get to make backups if I want to. I can still use it without issue on the hardware. That's a huge deal for me. I think you feel sort of similarly, right?
Oh, for sure. Especially like being able to like look over my shop like, oh, I want to play this game, but I just want to put it in something to back up a copy to play it like on my computer or like through other means and other various systems that I've like either homebrewed or like backed up stuff for, kind of be able to play wherever I want to, essentially.
Right. I mean, yeah, being able to play anywhere is a huge aspect of this. Being able to lend a game to a friend, like, is a concept that could disappear essentially, and is one that the games industry or certain actors in it have been wanting to sort of get rid of for a long time.
It reminds me, I'm sure this one you're mentioning is the back to the Xbox, like the Xbox One's like launch. Yep. They're like, oh, and the PlayStation's like, oh, like here's how you lend to like let people borrow a game. Here you go.
What was Xbox's scheme at the time? I'm trying to remember.
I think
they had a couple weird ones. I think they wanted the Kinect to be like watching you at all times.
Yeah, which people are like, do not get that thing out of here.
If I recall, that kind of played into like they wanted to make sure that like the proper amount of people were watching a movie.
Yeah,
so that like you didn't screen it to too many people.
Right.
Like actually like, evil.
Yeah, it's like you have 5 people, you have to pay an extra like $10 for that.
This was a real thing that they wanted to do.
Yeah, like we're not making this up. I mean, I may have exaggerated like the money, but like that's
the concept,
the idea.
Yeah. I think Xbox had some sort of idea where they wanted to basically cut GameStop out of the equation, so like you couldn't play pre-owned games on.
Yeah,
on
like
it.
even if you had a disc, you had to pay like a certain amount to be able to like use it again if it was already used before or something like that.
Just terrible.
Yeah. I mean, thank God, at least currently they're not thinking about doing that again.
Yeah. So another aspect of the physical media thing too that I love is you have that launch version of a game that is immortalized forever. Because the digital storefronts, generally when you buy a game, it is the latest update patch is just already installed, essentially.
And usually with disc ones, especially like on stuff like Xbox and PlayStation, when you put it in, you have to take time for it to download the current update and everything.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes to even make the game even playable.
Right.
The big example of that was I don't know if you remember Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5.
I do not.
So half of the courses on there are in the update.
Oh,
so you like basically like it was pretty much like a broken game at launch. And I think they actually shut down the servers for the game as well. So like, so hey, you have the 1.0, but it's basically a unplayable game. Which is at one point it's a little funny.
Yeah, I mean it's sort of it's nice that it exists though, so we have like a record of it.
Yeah,
the big example I think about is just like Mario Maker. I don't know if you remember those early days of Mario Maker. The game visually looks very different than its later versions. Like the P switches, colors were like different, and all these glitches existed that were removed later.
Right.
And so it's a very unique experience. Or like Smash Brothers having a launch copy of that because there's been so many updates.
Oh yeah, like other like
paid DLC and otherwise that changed the nature of that game. And just the idea, okay, I can have this early version forever, and we can always see the origins of where it came from, and potentially different iterations too, because same thing with physical is like over time the cartridge versions have different version numbers pre-installed.
Right.
It makes me think about, and this sort of gets into the backing up of games situation, which we'll circle back to later, but when the analog NT Mini came out, and it had the ability to dump NES games built into it, there was this huge explosion in discovering previously undumped or undocumented versions of games, like revisions, because back in the day, it wasn't through an update. It was just like, okay, we want to make a change. We got it. The new batch of cartridges will have the change installed on them.
Gotta have a whole new release of the game. We can't just like be like, oh, send your old game and we'll patch it and bring it back. It's like, no, you had to literally buy another copy of the game.
I just think that's super cool that we can have all these different versions preserved forever so that we can always keep track and also have the ability to return to those earlier versions if we want to for any reason outside of a historical one.
I know like speedrunners especially tend to use like older versions for like certain glitches for games.
Yeah, that's huge, right? Like if Mario 64, if that game just updated and everyone got the Shindu version, like you get rid of backwards long jumping, you get rid of like all those the different pole grabbing mechanics which were changed between the original and Shindu, stuff like that. It's just really cool that we have all of those versions now forever. And then also another point that I just thought of was the backwards compatibility thing.
Right.
Like you look at GameCube to Wii, because they both were physical disc-based media, the Wii was able to play GameCube games, and oftentimes the experience you're getting is a better one than on the original hardware. Or Wii U can play all the Wii library. The DS thing is even bigger, right?
Right.
3DS can play every 3DS game, every DS game.
Almost every DS game. Like it made stuff like the Guitar Hero.
Oh yeah. Where it's like a physical aspect of the device can accommodate it.
Other than that, I don't think there's really like any other like exceptions. It's something like you need like a separate like, especially for DS games. Like I mean, even though like the DSi one isn't compatible with those games anyways because it doesn't have that Game Boy Advance.
So just the physical media, the potential for backwards compatibility, which Microsoft seemed to embrace for a time, and then now they're walking back on that, unfortunately. The idea that Switch 2, we've talked about this so many times now, would be able to play all the Switch library. That's not something I want to give up. I don't want it to have to be, you needed to have it digitally maybe even to carry them over.
Yeah, which would really suck.
Yeah, because when does Nintendo decide down the road, okay, we're cutting you off now?
Right.
And don't get me wrong, there are benefits to digital downloads, and I use them as well. It's really convenient. Being able to get a game without having to go to a store, it's nice. But at the end of the day, I still want like that physical item, which someone somewhere can keep and back up for the future so that we don't have to worry about Nintendo's servers or the lifespan of one Switch unit or something in order to keep these games around. So that's my deal with physical media. The major thing to me is ownership, but there's a lot of other elements to go into it.
As well as just be, again, like looking over your shelf, be like, I want to pick this specific game up and put it in.
That's huge, right? That's just a huge element of it. Being able to look over a shelf of games and decide is always going to feel, to me, and this is maybe mostly nostalgic, but much more of an intimate experience than selecting things from a digital menu.
Yeah, because like you can actually like pick it up and hold it before putting it in. Which is like, let me scroll through my Steam my Steam library and just pick one out of random.
That's super wishy-washy. I feel like people who are a little bit younger than us might not give a shit, but for me, it's a huge part of the gameplay experience.
Absolutely.
Okay, Jordan, the end is nigh, but what can we do about the games that we have right now to prevent, so that we can keep them forever, essentially?
I kind of mentioned earlier, but backing up your games is very, very key to this.
Oh, for sure.
There's definitely various ways to do it. Not as much on the current consoles and most the first or the previous generation of this one.
Yeah.
But especially Wii U and back, PS3 and back, stuff like that. There are numerous ways to be able to back up your games. And
I think there's the expectation, especially with the disc-based consoles of the current generation, that we're going to be able to preserve all that stuff that's on the disc already.
Yeah, there will be. I think with these ones, it's more I think people are waiting to they stop supporting those systems. Yeah, which is also my personal stance on it as well. I don't want to, especially for the Switch, I don't want to do anything with that until Nintendo stops supporting the Switch. Yeah,
I want to use the official means as long as possible.
And then once those are expired, then we can go back and kind of do some exploring anyways.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about some of the ways to back up games. The big one for me that I've just loved using are the various analog consoles. They make backing up games, I think, pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I know we dumped a lot of Jordan's NES collection using the NT Mini. The Super NT, I think, has got one of the most intuitive ROM dumping solutions. Another really cool thing outside the analog consoles, though, is the GB operator. I loved using this thing. Jordan brought it over. You want to talk about the GB operator?
It was one of the first ones that I got for myself, and I absolutely love this thing. It's a very tiny little piece of hardware where you can plug any Game Boy, Game Boy Color, or Game Boy Advance into it. You plug the system into your PC, and you can pretty much like dump any game from those systems, as well as like play them as through a specific through the software you can download for it as well. Right. And you can like dump your saves and like flash the saves to the cartridge as well.
That's so huge. Being able to preserve your save files.
Oh yeah.
Like, wow. Which is another cool thing about physical media, is being able to carry a save file with you for forever. It's always stuck on that cartridge or whatever, potentially.
Right. And plus, like, say if you're able to back up like the 3DS games, like you have through the virtual console, you can rip those saves, use the GPR operator, and put them onto the original cartridge as well, and carry that save through.
That's so sick. I love that.
And then I know the company that's doing it, Epilogue, they're also working on a Super Nintendo one as well.
Very cool. I mean, for me, I think that it's hard to beat the Super NT.
Right.
But I do like the other options. And another one for Super Nintendo, I think, is the Retrode, right? Doesn't it do Super Nintendo?
It does. It's not the most well-rounded one, because you can't do like the S81 chip and like some like the other like very like specific chips. But if you want just like a generalized one for both that can do both SNES and Genesis, it's pretty easy to use that one.
I guess it's fair to bring up that like none of these solutions are perfect.
Yeah.
We ran into plenty of examples on both NES and Super Nintendo where the cartridge was just a little too weird.
Right.
What was the one? I think R-Type was one of them.
So I had gotten it's from Retrobit. It was Retrobit? It's like, or...
it's Retrobit, isn't it?
They had done a re-release of R-Type 3 and Super R-Type as like a 2-in-1 cartridge, where we've tried numerous times to try to dump that cartridge, and it just would not.
It always came out weird.
Yeah.
Usually we could dump like the menu, but the games themselves were.
Yeah, it just wasn't working. I don't really think there was probably a way to do that.
Not with the setup we had.
Like I tried like looking online through like for people that had done other things as well, and it seems like no one's really been able to. The few that have even tried it weren't really able to back it up.
Right. It is cool though that there's companies out there putting out new these new releases. That's another form of preservation, honestly.
Actually, speaking of, they're actually re-releasing Cybernator, I think, next year.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, under the original like Assault Suits Vulcans name.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's on limited run games right now. Actually, I'm thinking about picking up a copy. I might get a copy through that actually.
Huh.
Yeah.
Limited run has done so much good work in this regard, actually. Yeah, the Retrode though, it's not just a Super Nintendo dumping tool. I think the N64 aspect of it was that was the big one for me.
Yeah, because there's 3 main like add-ons you can get for it, which is the N64, which is one of the ones I got, as well as Master System, which I also got that for potential future use anyways. And then there's a Game Boy one as well, which I've got the GPR operator. I didn't really need to get the Game Boy one, but it's cool that's an option as well for people that already have the Retro and don't want to get like the GB operator.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, the Retrode can do a lot, but I think you're actually looking into one that's like super cool. Anyway, I heard about it in a My Life in Gaming video, but I don't remember all the details. So, Jordan, you want to talk about this thing?
Yeah, there's
really
one
cool?
I'm looking at, which I think I'm still going to wait a little bit to be able to order. I remember it's under the like Save the Heroes like brand name, where it's like 6 or 7 different systems you can like dump cartridges for. The version I'm looking at though is one you have to basically build yourself.
Right.
But there's like people that are like pre-built in, they're selling it like on Etsy and stuff like that, where it's like NES, SNES, N64, Game Boy, Genesis, Master System, I think Game Gear as well. Like there's other like additional like add-ons you can get for it as well. Some you may have to solder stuff for. Some are just pre-built. Like you can get one for like Virtual Boy or even like the Pokemon Mini. But you have to like resolder stuff through that to be able to utilize those.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a much more open source project too, right?
It is an open source. I think it's like literally called like the open source card reader or something like that.
That is big. As soon as you open source something like this, it's going to be so much more useful to people because, like, you know, the issue with, I think, the Retrode and the Super NT to a lesser degree is just like you're stuck with what the software is that's on there.
Right.
And
even the hardware too.
Right. And you're going to, if there's some limitation in there, then it's just the way it is.
Yeah, you're still involved. But like with open source ones, you like even if you have to take the time yourself to build it, or if you like enlist someone else's like services, they'll always be like updating stuff like the GitHub or whatever to like make it much more convenient, like add more functionality to these things.
All right, those are some options out there for backing up. You know, the last 30 years of games.
I see. There's others too, but they kind of require some homebrewing of your original system, which again,
none of it's too bad though.
Yeah.
I know that you've done a lot with the Wii, and that seems to be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, Wii, like, especially like the more recent ones like Wii U, and 3DS. 3DS to a lesser degree because of the most recent update and like
they're really trying to
like
put a stop to that.
I think I don't think like there was the intention to it. It was kind of like an unfortunate like byproduct basically. But if you have a new 3DS, it's still pretty straightforward. Original 3DS, it's a little bit more complicated.
Sure. I kind of want to talk about some comparisons that are made to other kinds of media and why video games are sort of special in this whole physical media discussion. So film and music, there's been this universal switch to streaming with these. You see especially like for CDs, music on CDs, that is evaporating more or less because everyone's got their Spotify. And film as well, I mean, everything's, I think, still mostly gets released on Blu-ray and DVD. In that regard, you know, there's always going to be compression artifacts, which I think will be noticeable to anyone who's like got even a relative sensitivity to it. Right. Where like having a Blu-ray might be preferable.
Or even an Ultra HD.
Right, yeah, exactly. But the convenience of streaming is still there, and it's going to be more and more of a dominant force as the technology improves. And I think there's just this belief that music and film has gone this direction, so games will. And game streaming, it seems like, well, that's the game Netflix. Just make Netflix, but for games.
No.
It just isn't the same. And I don't know if it will ever be good enough to be a valid option for any discerning customer.
I think a big reason is because like with like music or with film, like you're kind of a passive audience to it, whereas with games, like it has to pick up on like every single input you put in, relay it back to its server, and then relay back to you, be like, oh, you're moving forward, let's make sure you can actually move forward through this streaming it, versus like, movies like, oh, you just put it on, just either watch or put it on the background, you don't need to do anything else other than just pause it or change the volume, which is usually on your own device anyways.
Right. So I mean, like the input lag thing, it's just such a huge issue. And of course, games inherit all the other flaws of these other media we were talking about with streaming. As far as compression goes, I don't think you can make a streamed game look as nice as a game that's running natively on your console.
Absolutely not.
I think it's impossible. And I mean, the idea of, having a whole library of games that you can access at any time, like a Netflix, it's cool. We're seeing shades of that with the Switch Online and I think Game Pass too, right?
Yeah, I think Sony has their own thing going on.
Yeah, that sounds right. But at the end of the day, those are still running on your end. You don't have to, like, we've seen Nintendo's attempts at their cloud versions of games, and by all accounts, they're just terrible.
Yeah, because only the major ones I can think of are stuff like the Kingdom Hearts, which they should be able to even run natively anyways.
Yeah.
Maybe barring 3, but like definitely the 1.5, 2.5 absolutely should. Because those are just literally just PS3 versions.
Right. Yeah. And also, like, a movie or a streamed song. Let's say that something like Orange is the New Black, which I think got DVD releases, but for the sake of argument, let's say it didn't.
Yeah.
Backing that up from a streamed version is pretty straightforward. Get a capture card or something.
Yeah.
Screen record it on your computer. Same thing with music. Bring up Audacity.
Yeah.
Copying that file, if it's not as simple as just save as.
Yeah.
It's still pretty straightforward, and anyone can do it. But for a game,
there's no way.
Yeah, it's impossible. So if that game gets taken down in the future of GameFlix original productions, that's lost forever. It's no good. Assuming that you'd want to play it anyway, I guess.
Right.
My point of view would be that it would not be worth playing because it would be a laggy mess. But
right.
Giving them, the benefit of the doubt there that they figure that out, still, you have no control over that. Even with these current cloud versions, you are paying money to own the application, but if they ever decide to cut the servers,
you can't play it anymore.
It's ridiculous. It gets back to the ownership thing, which, we've already covered, but not a good future for gaming at all. And, as far as like the film and music stuff go, it's frankly a little bit annoying to me in those regards even. I'm still a huge collector of like CDs.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
How much do I want to get into this? One of the artists that I follow, a lot of their stuff was not online for the longest time. And then the YouTube channel starts posting, basically all the albums, and you can access most of it, like 90% of his music on streaming now. But first of all, there's that 10% that you can't,
right.
Which, I'm not cool with. I need to
be
able to have access to that as well. But also, if they were able to do such an effective job of keeping it off the internet, basically, for so long, what's going to stop them from someday saying, we're gonna pull this all. Now you have to go to our special subscription service and pay. If you want to hear this artist, you have to pay our special subscription. We have to, I feel like the whole world is moving towards that. Like everything is a subscription.
Yeah, it's like gotta pay money for every little nickel and dime for every little step of the way.
Everyone has their, in the world of TV. Paramount has theirs, Netflix, Hulu, Disney. Yeah. And some of these are owned by the same company. I'm pretty sure,
like parent company probably.
And then we've seen this exact thing happen there, where I think like Infinity Train, right? One of the more popular animated shows.
And HBO Max got, I think it was a tax write-off. I think is what the. Yeah. There's been examples like that going on for years, but like not really until it was the streaming area that people even like really picked up too much on it.
Yeah, and I think Infinity Train might have gotten a physical release. I'm not sure, but
I don't think all 4 seasons did.
Well, there you go then. Yeah. So I hope that you saved it.
Hopefully,
and luckily, at least with film, downloading that stuff is more straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty easy for those.
I'm just saying, apply this to a video game.
Yeah,
and you can see the issue with it. Okay, I think that we pretty much covered that. It's not the same. Oh, there's actually another aspect to this too I want to cover, though, is that these consoles are like locked to themselves, if that makes sense. Like anyone can make a DVD player.
Yeah.
So down the road, you can have your DVDs.
Rebuilding a console, especially a modern console.
Exactly. It is not straightforward. No. We're lucky enough to have companies like Analog that have done it for some of the older consoles, and we have like the Mr. FPGA, which really opens up the floodgates. But 20 years from now, Walmart's not going to have their own brand of like Switch for $5 or whatever. You know what I mean? It's a totally different ecosystem.
Yeah,
so
at that point, like you'd have to delve into like actual like game like emulation.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a whole other topic that we
really
don't need to get into right now.
Okay. The last thing I have written here, as far as like things to cover, and we actually spent more time talking than I thought we were gonna we were going to. So this is okay. It's just the DRM aspect. We mentioned that a little bit earlier with like Darkspore, how the always online thing was an issue. But the bigger one that I want to talk about, or the more contemporarily relevant one, is the Matrix demo.
Yeah.
So there's this Matrix Unreal 5 demo that was released, and it was like basically had two purposes. A, look at what this new generation of consoles can do, and B, look at what Unreal Engine 5 can do.
Oh, and also see like, oh hey, here's some stuff about like the new Matrix movie coming out.
Right. Yeah, that too. Yeah. This, the Matrix Revengeance, Revolutions.
Something, whatever. The
Matrix,
fourth one.
The Matrix 4 was coming out. But huge technical showcase. One of the most impressive tech demos maybe ever. And it was, available to download on all the consoles that
I think it was actually just PS4, just PS5.
Really? I was pretty sure the Xbox had it as well.
Maybe. I remember.
Okay, I'm gonna trust you on this one though. But regardless, you could download it and play this demo for yourself. And eventually it got delisted, which I think is speculated for being related to like copyright reasons. They couldn't have kept it up.
And also like it was well past like the movie being in theaters, so people were like, we don't really, people aren't going to care about this too much anymore.
Right. So they delisted it, but you could still play it was the important thing. Until like a couple weeks ago, when randomly it speculated that the server crashed. And no one, Epic really noticed, because who cares about this, delisted game. And you could no longer access what was a huge technical showpiece for the current gen. Because it had this weird online DRM thing that was hidden from the user. Right. It should be noted, it's not an online game or demo. It's all local, but it did some online check-in. Everyone's like, well, what do we do? Right. No one had a solution to that. That shows how... I think it just goes to show that, these games can just disappear overnight. If there isn't
like completely local
ability to keep this stuff. And so with that in mind, I kind of want to propose a potential idea for coping with a more digital future, because it seems like we are moving towards all digital eventually. Yeah. Rumor, this is rumor mill stuff, but like supposedly Switch 2 is going to launch in 2 different models, a digital only and one that accepts cartridges, which is believable enough, I guess, with how things are going.
Yeah, especially because PS5 has both models as well.
Yep, exactly. So. It seems to be the way things are going. But I propose this. I think that keep some sort of way to play physical games on all these consoles, right? But you don't want to have to sell physical game cartridges. Bring back that Nintendo Power idea.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Allow people to buy blank cartridges and download the game to the cartridge. And they can buy as many of these as they want, or whatever, All you have to sell is the blank version. They download them. They get to keep that game forever, no matter what. But you don't have to invest in printing a bunch of physical games anymore.
Right. You can just be like, oh, hey, here's... Even offer like different sizes for the cartridge as well. You can do like the 16 gigabyte, 32, 64, however much that the higher they obviously the more storage space it has, like the more expensive it's going to be. But that way people can make like these bigger games, be able to download them onto this cartridge.
Right.
Versus like some of these games where it's like you can buy the cartridge, but it's like the internet download required for this game.
Yeah, like I think LA Noire is that way.
Yeah, there's a decent amount like that on the Switch.
I mean, it's more boring for us, I think.
Yeah.
But it is also a way to guarantee and I think prevent a lot of the issues that we've brought up here. Like those early launch versions. As long as someone downloaded it, it's always there. Yeah. As long as whatever, someone's holding on to the physical cart backup, we have it forever.
The other cool thing too is that like some of these digital games would have been digital only as well can also have their own like physical version without needing to go through something like limited run or like their own like third party way to make cartridges for it.
Some piracy sort of solution, which I don't have any problem with as far as if it means saving this stuff, but it would be maybe a way around that too. That's my suggestion. I don't know how realistic that is. It probably isn't very realistic, but I think it is a very reasonable, demand. If they aren't going to do physical releases anymore, give people some way to keep a physical backup of it. All right, Jordan, is there anything else you want to add? I think that we actually did a pretty good job of covering a lot of the elements of this.
I think the only thing I can really think of is just like if you have some of these semi more recent like systems and you want to back up your save files or like games as well, like definitely like do your own research on it because there's a lot of stuff that you have to look into. Make sure you do things correctly. Obviously, you don't want to ruin your console that way. And even like the current systems, you definitely want to wait till like they stop like actively supporting these systems before you even start thinking about messing around with them.
You kind of want to wait like a console generation usually,
pretty much,
because for a couple of reasons. I think that you should support the devs while the game is being actively sold.
Absolutely.
After that, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But the other thing is you want to wait for the modding scene to mature with that console, and usually like it takes about a console generation for that to really happen.
The other thing too is that you also don't want to accidentally get your online account banned as well.
Yeah, that's huge.
Or even bricking your console,
right.
Which kind of ties into the waiting for the modding scene to mature and everything.
Yep. All right. I mean, this was a great talk, Jordan. Unfortunately, no user questions this week.
Single tier.
Really, I just do not care to come up with one right now. Hey, we talked enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining me, Jordan. This was a lot of fun. This is a topic that we both care a lot about, so I'm glad we were able to sit down and have this conversation.
Definitely one we've talked about numerous times before, but now we can actually get it out there so people can listen to us ramble about it as well.
Exactly. All right, thanks everybody. See you next time. Bye.
Later.